years. I've had about 100 kids get college scholarships. I've had some kids reach All-American status. And the South Central Junior Tour that a lot of the kids play on, I founded that in 1982. So from all that, you can see that I've got a great love of teaching kids and developing golfers, and it's something that I've done for a long time. And I'm here today to talk to you about a new way to do this that I am very, very excited about, that I think is going to change the way that we teach junior golfers going forward. This is from the Titleist Performance Institute. Several years ago they were founded with the idea of developing more athleticism in golfers, and so we can do functional movement screens on any level of player to find out their degree of flexibility and how well they are suited to make the golf swings they want to make. I'm certified at their highest level, and I'm one of only 30 people in the world to be certified to teach their junior golf program. That's what I'm here to tell you about today. So I appreciate you stopping by. If you have any questions, give me a call at the range, or you can send me an email or something and let me know what I can do to help. Okay? Most junior golf programs nowadays are developed with a kind of an adult concept in one dimension, that being lining up 8 or 10 kids in a golf class, give them a golf club and let them start hitting balls. Well, we know kids get pretty bored of doing that, especially if they're hitting them on the ground or they're whiffing the ball. It's not very much fun after a while, so they lose their interest pretty quickly on that. We know that kids like to play sports when it's fun for them, if they can do it with their friends, if they feel good about themselves, and if all of these things happen, then we think that we're going to develop a very long-term love for the game of golf. Now, what I'm about to tell you is designed to create elite-level golfers later in their life. Okay, so this is a very serious program, but it is going to be a blast for the kids. They're going to have so much fun doing this. They're going to be begging you to bring them back to the classes, and it's going to be a blast, and they're going to get hooked on it. And at the same time, we're going to develop a lot of athletic skills for them that will help them in their golf, but it's going to be good for any sport they play. And you'll see as we go through this, this is not just about golf only, but it's based on a model called long-term athletic development. And that is where we teach kids fundamentals early on, then we'll specialize with them after they get the fundamentals. And then we're going to depend a lot on the parents to be involved in what we consider to be the windows of trainability. And we know that when kids learn at certain times in their life, based on their growth velocity, how fast they're growing, they can develop athletic skills at a much accelerated rate and be much stronger than them later in life. Golf is a late developmental sport. The experts feel like it takes about 10 years and maybe 10,000 hours of practice to develop golf at an elite level, and really any kind of sport at an elite level. There's a few of them that are early mature, such as gymnasts and swimmers and divers seem to develop early on. But most other sports, including golf, is a late specialization sport, so it takes about 10 years and 10,000 hours to really develop a golfer to an elite level. Well, we want to start them earlier on that and develop that athletic ability early on. The fundamentals we're going to teach them early on will be based on their locomotion skills. This is jumping, skipping, hopping, side-to-side slides, those things like that. Stability, and we consider stability to be the ABCs, and that would be agility, balance, coordination, and speed. If we get those things, and they can play a lot of other sports very effectively. Manipulative skills, that's where you use a stick or a bat or a ball to hit or move a ball or something like that. And then their awareness skills, spatial awareness, somersaults, tumbling, those kind of things, give them those awareness of where they're in space to help develop the balance and the other skills that we want to. Okay, so in this long-term athletic development, we're going to be basing this on them developing functional movement skills. Okay, and so that's a very general term, good for any sport. But each one of these functional movement skills has a beginner and an intermediate phase and a mature phase. Now then, if you think back about how most of the kids are put into groups when they play sports, they're done by chronological age, simply by their birth date. And if you've got more than one child in your family, you know that the kids develop at different stages and different rates. And so we've got ways to do screenings on the kids, functional movement screens, so we can tell through these series of tests where they're at developmentally. And we know that this can be plus or minus 2 years. So you could have an 8-year-old child that developmentally might be like a 6-year-old, or you could have an 8-year-old child that might developmentally be like a 10-year-old. But yet in today's world, they get lumped into the same streams based on their chronological age, and they're taught the same way. Well, this doesn't work very well. And so we're going to develop kids based on their developmental age, and we're going to be able to screen and test them. So we know that in the beginner's phase, this is simply where they're trying to execute the movement. Tell them to throw a ball, and they'll try to throw it as best they can. They may not be very good at it, but they kind of get the idea the ball has to go from one point to the next point, and that's the beginner stage. The intermediate phase would be where we develop more of their skill, give them a refined pattern of movement and maybe some repetition of movement for some practice. Then the mature phase, where we might consolidate several complex movements and develop games and targets and contests. So each one of these functional movement skills has those phases, and so we're going to test the kids first to see what stage they fall into, and then we'll coordinate the patterns of movements based on where they're at developmentally, not necessarily chronologically. But we think it's really, really important that they do this with friends or their siblings. So we may have two 8-year-olds in the class. So that one is developmentally a little bit better off, or a little bit younger than the other one, and we can change the pattern of movement to help them develop at the same rate. And it's a very big part of what we're going to do with the TPI Junior Golf Program. And if they can't develop these functional movement skills, then they can't run, they can't throw, they won't be able to catch. So you can see any sport this can be relevant to, it's going to help them develop at a much accelerated rate much later in their life if they learn these functional movement skills through the long-term athletic development program starting right now. We know from history with other sports that the elite players played multiple sports up until about the age they were 15 or 16. So we're going to encourage the kids to play a lot of other sports, at least 2 other sports. Some sports are better suited to develop golf than others, and we can help you learn which sports these are. And so if you want to develop your child to be that elite golfer, these other sports will be very, very complementary to what they want to do. Golf is a closed and discrete sport. By that I mean closed means that a sport is done at its own pace in a repeated pattern of movement, and usually with some precise movements required. So let's take basketball for example. That is not a closed sport at the normal pace. But shooting a free throw is a closed and discrete sport. There's a beginning and an end to that activity. Just like there's a golf swing, there's a beginning and an end to it. So we want to complement golf with these other sports that kind of help kids develop those kind of coordination, those kind of movements, and then later in life, because they played these other sports when they were younger, along with our functional movement program, they'll be able to pull from these skills they learned and develop as an elite player at a much faster rate and at a much higher level because of the base that they have right now. We know that change and learning new movements is very sequential and cumulative based. And the easiest example there is you have to learn to walk before you can run. Well, before you can swing a golf club in a highly effective, precise pattern with a lot of speed, you have to develop some of these functional movement skills that we're talking about. And so this is where it starts, the windows of trainability. And this is where parents can be involved. We're going to ask you to measure the kids on a very periodic basis, usually about once every 2 months, and keep track of that. And we know in our long-term athletic development model that at certain stages of kids growing, there are critical times to learn certain skills at an accelerated rate. And when they do this and develop these skills, it gives them a chance to be much stronger and faster and better the rest of their life. But we've got to hit these windows of opportunity to train at the right stage. The things we're going to be training are stamina, strength, speed, skill, and suppleness, or their mobility factors. And currently, right now, we conduct TPI evaluations on a lot of our adult players to find out their degrees of flexibility and what's going to keep them from making good golf swings. And almost always we come up with a pretty big list of limited movements the adults can make. So we're trying to get to the kids early on, get them more athletic, develop these ranges of motion and those kind of things so they don't have to deal with these later on in their adult life. In our long-term athletic development model, we note there are critical times to learn certain skills at an accelerated rate because of the way the kids are growing. And these are called the 5 S's: stamina, speed, strength, skill, and suppleness, or mobility as far as suppleness goes. But we know when we hit these windows of opportunity at certain stages in a child's growth, they can learn these factors at a much accelerated rate. They can develop the muscle fibers necessary for them to continue to develop strength and speed and stamina at a much later in their life at a much higher rate. So if the kids learn to do this right now, they'll develop strength right now, and it will give them potential to be much stronger the rest of their life. Now they can still develop strength later in life, but not to the extent they could had they not hit these windows of opportunity that we're talking about. So I'll give you an example. Girls, usually between the ages of 6 and 8, but again, that may change. That'll be different based on their developmental age. But we know about this time in their life, it's a great time to introduce speed concepts to them. Short bursts of speed, a little bit longer speed, but mostly short bursts.